Yo, what's up guys? In this video, I'm going to be VOD reviewing FNCS champion Vanyak's first out of 3 wins in the solo victory Cash Cup. If you'd like to see the other 2 wins VOD reviewed, let me know in the comments down below. Without further ado, let's get into it. Vanyak's drop for this winning game is Redline Rig. After grabbing a shotgun and going for some tags on a landing player, he quickly loots up. Redline Rig is really good because it gives him the infinite shield medallion, which allows him to carry more medkits and less shield pots in the endgame. One thing important to note here is that once he tags the boss to get his attention, he goes to the top of the POI where he can block it off with the floor. This is very important as it prevents third parties from AIs and other players, allowing him to get the boss alone. After killing the boss to get the best AR and the medallion, he loots up around the POI. As you can see here, he hears a player and he runs towards it. He sees the door, but rather than busting through, he makes sure to block off his angles by placing a stair so that he cannot 50-50 and potentially die. He continues to loot up in the POI, but he is then ambushed by a player. He knows the enemy has a health advantage, so he runs. While he is escaping, he is hit very hard by the enemy player. So he continues to run through the maze of a POI and eventually escapes. Make sure not to engage in fights when you know you have a disadvantage and are low on mats, and run away like Vanyak does. He leaves the POI to farm up outside and loot from buildings around the POI. While he is looting a building, he is shot at and runs like he did earlier because he knows he has a disadvantage. He builds behind him to block the shots of the enemy player while running. He goes to the location that he knows has a large number of barrels, but there is a player there too, so he continues running. Note that he does not fight because he knows he has low mats, and knows that if he fights, it will end up being a 50-50. After running for a bit, he tries to go through the nitro ring, but it doesn't work, so he turns around and runs back the other way, changing his escape plan. He goes to a small area that he knows of where there is a rock for lots of mats and 1,000,000 ammo crates, allowing him to get nearly max ammo for his overpowered AR. He continues to rotate until he gets to the oasis nearby, where he pops some nitro before using the launch pad on a boat to continue to rotate. As I mentioned in my last video, knowledge of the map is very important. Vanyak clearly has this mastered because he uses the launch pad to go to an area where he can farm up to get max wood. After he is done farming up the trees, he knows there is a nitro ring right nearby where he can pop Flowberry and go straight from one nitro ring to the next. After going through both nitro rings, he lands in the Pirates of the Caribbean area, where he unfortunately smacks into a wall, but then he uses the geyser to his advantage to rotate yet again. After using this geyser, he lands all the way over by Restored Reels, where he can continue to farm and loot up so he's prepared to fight. After looting at Restored, he uses the river sticks to rotate until he comes across a player. He tries to dash up to start the fight, but it does not work and he must retreat to low ground where he is then sprayed at by the enemy player. Note that he drops the shield medallion so that it starts healing again before spraying at the enemy player. After giving up with the player on high ground, he continues rotating until he is shot at from another player up on the hill and hit for a lot. He immediately boxes up to pop a medkit and drop the medallion to start healing his shield while he heals his whites. Note that he does not panic and he does not run like most players would. He just boxes up where he is because he knows the enemy is not going to lose their high ground to come to him. After this, he goes for some tags on some enemies for Storm Surge, which is likely to be a problem later. As you can see, there was many players around him for him to get tags on. He then continues to rotate using impressive dashes, before making his way to a bush to camp in until zone. After entering the bush, he is sprayed at by a player checking the bush, who he immediately tags for more than 90 damage. Knowing that he has an almost 100 health advantage, he immediately chases down the player and starts fighting him. Note the impressive piece control, but not overly flashy builds. He chases the player all the way around, knowing that this loot would be helpful, and if he eliminates the player now, that's one less to worry about at the end. After picking up the kill, he has lots of mats and heals. After grabbing that player's loot, he rotates to his nice little hill where he can build a place to camp until zone comes. Note that he uses brick as it was more protective than wood and can be easily sprayed through. He waits until he has to rotate to the next zone before leaving the box and rotating to another spot to camp. However, while he is rotating, a player shoots at him from behind. Note right here that as you can see, there is bullets from another player, so he should have protected his upper left-hand corner so that that player does not shoot him, as they do here. After quickly dropping the medallion to start picking up more shields, he goes back to the player that he sprayed earlier for 150 damage. He knows these mats will be useful later. After grabbing that player's loot, he rotates to another spot where he can yet again build a fort to camp in. After waiting for a bit, a player moves to a box very near him. He uses the AR to spray through the walls and hit the player for more than 125 damage. After checking his surroundings for any players that could be trying to third party, he quickly rotates over to where the player was before boxing up and protecting himself. As you can see here, he waits for quite a while before anything happens. Soon enough, however, a player stumbles upon him. He quickly hits him with his shotgun before spraying after him and chasing the player. Props to the player for running and properly blocking his angles, as he is not able to chase the player down and get the finish. He waits until zone, when then he pops a nitro and begins to rotate to the next zone so he can make his base early so that other players will have to rotate to him and he can spray them. Note that here he does get hit, but as he did earlier, he blocks behind him with walls so that he cannot be hit for more. He continues until he goes into zone, where he builds another base. Note again, he uses brick or metal, in this case metal, so that he cannot be easily sprayed through. He soon sees a player who he can spray for a lot, and using his peak control to block his angles, he quickly gets in and gets the kill. After a bit, he again has to rotate, so he pops nitro and leaves his precious little box. Note that he rotates straight through the players, but because he has nitro and tons of mats, he can block his angle and move fast. He boxes up on top of this other player and tries to piece control them, but they are not in there anymore. After taking height, he sprays this player through the wood. As I mentioned earlier, wood is easy to spray through. It just so happens that the player he sprayed had the infinite ammo medallion, which means at the end game, when he is on height, he can infinitely spray the other players, giving him an advantage. As you can see here, he continues to build and take height using his nitro to move fast and break into boxes that he thinks may have a player. He is shot out, however, he quickly jumps back to build it and protect himself from falling. Height is very important. He continues to spray using his infinite ammo medallion along with the best AR in the game and quickly picks up a kill. He uses nitro every so often so that he can walk faster and rotate, and also if he gets sprayed out as he does here, he does not die to fall damage because he has nitro. He quickly 90s back up to height and sprays a few players along the way, picking up another kill. Yet again, he builds up to height and continues spraying the players below him with infinite ammo medallion and his mythic AR. He hits a lot of players for a lot of damage, but does not pick up any kills quite yet. He continues popping nitro so that he cannot fall to his death, and continues building. Here, you can see that he's spraying a player for quite a bit, and jumps down knowing that he is low on hard mats such as brick and metal, and reconnects. After building up just a little bit with wood, not too high, as he also does not want to be too far away from the players because then if he runs out of nitro, he's in trouble. He continues spraying players that are trying to contest him for height before dropping down and getting hit with a shotgun. It does not faze him though, as he quickly reclaims height. He then uses a combination of his infinite shield medallion and flowberry to heal back up to full health before continuing to take height by placing floors ahead of where he needs to be for zone. As you can see, he continues spraying players below him for damage. This player is particularly low, so he uses his nitro to jump in on the player. Unfortunately, the player gets away at first. However, he can shotgun them when they are trying to escape. Note that there are medkits here, this will be important later. After shooting at a few more players to make sure they don't try to take his height away from him, he continues building and farms up on a tree near him. you can see that Zone is almost gonna close in, so he pins the medkits so that he knows where to come back to when it becomes a heal-off. He sprays a player below him, getting a kill on one that is low, and then he continues to attack the last player that is below him. Nothing happened for a bit because it was a 1v1, so I skipped ahead to the part where the heal-off happens. He immediately starts popping his medkits and walking back to where he pinned the medkits from before when he killed the player. As you can see here, he knows he has at least 4 medkits, which is usually enough to win the heal-off, especially in a 1v1. So he continues going down to the medkits rather than trying to kill the other player. After grabbing the medkits, he continues to pop those. Soon enough, he will get storm sickness. Note that it is important to stay out of storm in the early game, as storm sickness will happen earlier during heal-off, which will ultimately make you lose. He has not been in storm pretty much at all except for a few seconds early game when he was farming up. So when storm sickness comes around, he will not have a problem with it. After popping a few more medkits and walking around looking for any medkits that he could find, storm sickness comes, and he ultimately ends up winning the game. If this video helped you out at all, or if it was at least fun to watch, consider subscribing and comment down below whether I should do the next 2 of the 3 games he won. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.